And away we go again. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Stephen Warren Hill here, your Chicago TARDIS host, welcoming you to another Chicago TARDIS 2020 virtual panel. This time, the Sophie Aldred interview. Looking forward to this one. This one's going out live, and we hope you enjoy it. We'll always remember, leave some feedback in the Sketch app, and you can post questions in the chat windows in Facebook and YouTube. Nick, do you have anything to add?
Just two things. One, just remember that we can't get to every question that people might post on YouTube or Facebook, but our moderators will try to forward those questions appropriately to Ross. Please don't be disappointed if we can't get to your specific question. I do want to remind people that if you like the music that we ordinarily play at Chicago TARDIS, you can look up Planet 14 on SoundCloud to find the versions of the Doctor Who theme, including this year's version of the Chicago TARDIS variation of the Doctor Who theme. Also want to remind people to please leave feedback for the different panels on sketch.com. Back to you,
Okay.
Steve.
So yeah, we'll be back at about the 45-minute mark or so. But until then, have a great time. I'm going to introduce you to one of my favorite interviewers, Mr. Ross Rudiger. Ross, take it away.
Thank you, Stephen. Sophie, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Good,
awesome. So this is it. It's you and me for the next 45 minutes. So I've got you captive.
You and me and a whole load of Doctor Who fans from all over the place.
They must be very, very excited. I know that when I saw the lineup, I was like, I really hope that Stephen asks me to interview Sophie. And then he did. I didn't even have to ask him. So I was really excited about that. I want to start by going back. This is something that I've picked up from a couple different interviews with you. And this is where you kind of got your start when you were very young. And I want you to explain to us Americans, what is a working man's club? Because that's totally a foreign idea to me. I'd never heard of it until I heard you start talking about it.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, I'd never heard of them either.
Okay.
Yeah. So a working men's club is something that was created, I don't know when they were created first, but they were for groups of men, say miners or people with a lot of manual workers would come to clubs, and it would be where you could get a very cheap drink. They had very cheap beer. They would have food, again at cheap prices, and they would have entertainment. They would have kind of what we called, I suppose, light entertainment. So singing duos or kind of impersonators or some comedians as well. And this was something completely new to me. And there would be one that they still exist. There's kind of one in every town. I think they're probably something like, you would pay a subscription to go per year, and not that much, but you would join a working man's club. So I started this duo, and we sang kind of 50s and 60s songs in the working men's clubs, and it was a whole new world for me. It was quite something. And they say that if you can sing or play or whatever in a working man's club, you can pretty much go anywhere and do anything, because they're very, very clear about whether they like you or not.
Oh, wow. All right. Now I'm going to veer off into a totally different direction. And this was something that you just said it in passing in your DVD Blu-ray or your Blu-ray interview with Matthew Sweet. And I was like, did she just say that? Did you?
I wonder what this is.
Did you once upon a time date Tim Booth?
Oh yeah, yes, I did.
I'm like a big James fan, and it blows me away.
It was when we were. I got to Manchester University, aged just 18, and I think Tim was in the 3rd year. Yeah, he was. And we kind of met at the Cellar Bar Disco, I think it was. And I love dancing. I'm not a trained dancer. I don't do ballet or tap or modern or anything like that, but I love getting down and boogieing. So, and Tim was, well, still is, an extraordinary dancer, and he danced like nobody I'd ever seen before, really. Anyway, we started going out together, and he was in a band, and that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a singer, a sort of like in a band. I wanted to be a children's TV presenter and an actress, and I used to go along and watch his band and think, I don't really get this, I don't really get this music, which just shows how it wasn't James, but he was singing, and it was very indie and very, I mean, it was great. Anyway, we went out for quite a while, and then years later, I suppose in about 1987-8, they were playing at the place in Brixton, the Brixton Academy. James were playing, and I went to the gig, and I took one of my publicity cards with me, and I handed it in at the stage door, and I said, to Tim, dreams come true, and I sent it in, and very quickly somebody came and said, come and see Tim. So we met up again. And then actually I was when I was in at Galley last time, I gave him a call, and we've had a few chats since then. And it's great to be in touch with him.
That blows my mind. So let's move on to Doctor Who now. So there was a great deal of will I or won't I become the permanent companion with you at first. And I wondered, how badly did you want the long-term gig once you started rehearsing Dragonfire?
Great question. Well, put it this way, I'd never done any TV before. I was in the back row of the chorus in Fiddler on the Roof up at the Manchester Opera House when I got the call to do the audition, and then heard I'd got the part and the possibility of maybe going on and being the companion. And so, yes, all the way through rehearsals, I mean, obviously it was in the back of my mind, and it was very much, of course, up to Bonnie. Nobody quite knew whether she was leaving or staying. I mean, I would have been happy for her if she'd stayed, because who couldn't love Bonnie Langford, and she became a great friend and still is. But of course, I was, as any actor or actress would be, while kind of pretending to be quite cool and calm about it, the more it became a possibility, just the more desperate I was to do it, Oh, please, I'd love to do this, because I was having such fun, and being with Sylvester as well. I mean, it was just a dream come true. It was just the most amazing thing that could happen to me.
You make your mark so quickly on the series. I mean, I don't know how many people know, but your first scene is with Kane, the first scene you shot. And you come in as though you have been doing this your whole life. And this is so amazing to me to find out that it's your first time doing TV ever. And, most doctors don't even nail their doctor the first scene. And here you are, no TV experience. You've only done working men's clubs and theater, and you own this. And, did you just feel at home right away? You're like, this is where I need to be.
Yep, absolutely. It was completely natural for me. And I think also when I was 24 at the time, I had the kind of that confidence of youth as well. I think that went a long way. And don't forget that in those days we used to have rehearsals. So I'd had a week with these amazing people, with very experienced people as well, with Eddie Peel, and of course with Sylvester and Bonnie, also with Tony Selby, with Pat Quinn, with Tony Asoba, with all these kind of consummate professionals, having a laugh as well, enjoying ourselves. And so when I finally got into the studio, although it was intimidating in that it was this huge space, and working with the cameras was different in a way, we'd had the rehearsal period, which I was used to, obviously, in theatre. And in many ways, it wasn't that much different to theatre, that big first scene, because we were doing a multi-camera, we were doing 6 cameras. So it was a bit theatrical, that scene anyway. And I knew that I had the support of all my new friends, you know. So Eddie was telling me, I can remember standing there, you know, for the first time in front of the cameras, and the camera panned up and down me like that. They had to check about my costume, and in fact I was wearing some stripy sort of hooped tights and on my legs, and they said, oh no, the cameras are strobing. So I had to go off and get those red ones, which I ended up wearing, which are not the most flattering, I have to say, but anyway. But yes, and then once that was done, you know, I stood there and this camera just went like that. And then we started rehearsing the scene. And Eddie was great because I had to look up at him like this. And he said to me, look at me. I remember the camera was on this side here. It wasn't too close. But he said, look at me with this eye, main eye, because that'll bring your face round a little bit towards the camera. And so people were giving me tips and they were helping me all the way along. It was an amazing experience of feeling very held. So I don't even remember being nervous, to be honest.
Well, it couldn't have gone any other way, I think, at this point. So, being a Doctor Who regular can lead to some very unique acting relationships, and yours is with Sylvester. And I wondered what it is like to be tied to this one other actor for over 30 years, to constantly always be in one another's orbit, even if you're not acting together all the time. What is that relationship like between the two of you?
Well, I know if he was here and he heard you say that we were tied together, he'd probably take off his scarf and try and literally tie us together. But yeah, he's a one-off. For those of you who've met him, he's an amazing, amazing man. He's constantly curious about the world. I think that's what's amazing about him, is that he will find himself. He wants to go anywhere and do anything. Like, for example, his son lives out in Bangkok now with his wife, and they were expecting his first grandchild, Lily. This is like just over 2 years ago. So Sylvester thought, well, I'd love to go out to Bangkok and be with them. And does he do what any normal human being would do, which is like book a plane ticket, you know, book a hotel in Bangkok, get on the plane, you know, maybe have a stopover somewhere on the way? No, Sylvester McCoy decides to get on the Trans-Siberian Railway and go by rail to Bangkok. I mean, just unbelievable. And that's a real mark of the kind of person he is, that he's always up for an adventure. Always. Oh, he rang me a while back, maybe a year or so ago, and he said, "Oh, Sophie," he says, I got pissed and bought a house in France. You know, I mean, he's just like, so it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to count him amongst one of my closest friends, and to have had this, what is it, 33 years. Yeah. And yeah, long may it last.
Yeah. So how about, can we talk about Andrew Cartmel for a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Just be curious as to know what, he was kind of the guiding hand when you were on the show. Is that correct? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think very much low key.
Okay.
He, because of course, John Nathan Turner was the real guy in charge. That was very obvious. But Andrew was, it was an extraordinary relationship that he had with John Nathan Turner because they were like chalk and cheese. But Andrew had the respect of John, and John had the respect of Andrew. And it was a relationship that worked very well. So John kind of gave Andrew a lot of room to come up with some amazing ideas. He trusted him to bring new writers to the show. And he very much, Andrew would be a presence during rehearsals as well, to just make sure that we knew what was going on, particularly for stories like Ghostlight or whatever. And I remember actually, Andrew had this, it was a sort of early laptop kind of thing. It was some bit of tech anyway. And so he'd be writing on this thing. It fascinated me because I had an old typewriter at home. We just didn't have that kind of thing. And he would go around and he'd make notes on this thing. And then he'd have these little tiny notebooks as well. And he wrote in teeny tiny writing in these notebooks, which I think later went on to be the books that he's written about his time on Doctor Who. But he's a thinker, Andrew is, and very kind of calm and quiet, but he thinks a lot, and you can see his brain was whirring all the time. So he definitely had an idea that he was also consulting with Sylvester, obviously, on the way that the direction the Doctor was going and the relationship between Doctor and Ace. So it was kind of always in the background.
So I'm about the same age as Ace, and it's kind of difficult for me.
That's a funny thought, isn't it?
It is. Well, I was a teenager watching these episodes when they were brand new, and I was so moved and I was so touched following her in these stories. I was kind of in love with her. I was in awe of her. I was inspired by her. And I kind of wondered if you have gotten that kind of feedback from other teenagers over the years. People who saw something in her that maybe they'd never seen in a Doctor Who companion before.
By the way, what a lovely thing to say. Thank you so much. Yeah, I have, universally. And I think there was something about the character of Ace, something about the writing, that actually was very real, that people could really tap into for the first time, maybe with a companion, because there were some great companions previously, particularly obviously Sarah Jane and Joe Grant and Leela. They spring to mind. Jamie, those characters. But I think Ace was the first character. She was very much of her time, and she was also written in that sort of realism way that was something that had not been seen and wasn't very common on TV at the time. I don't know about in the States, but certainly in Britain, we didn't really have very many realistic teenage characters in a kind of such a big show. And there was just something about her. I think it's something to do with her vulnerability. People talk about her as this feisty, but the thing is, she was a very, very well written in a very well-rounded way. So, yeah, for sure, she was feisty. She would give people, she'd say what she meant. She was courageous. She was dynamic, but also right from Dragonfire, you've got that lovely scene with Mel, where Ace talks about her inner feelings, her life, and her parents and her background. So already that backstory is there. So I think that's what made the difference really to people. And I certainly have had some wonderful feedback from people, particularly I think people who were going through a hard time at that time, and who I've had many people say to me that they were maybe being bullied at school or going through a difficult time with parents or at home, and they would think, or even with their sexuality actually, you know, and they would think, what would Ace do? You know, what would Ace do in this situation? And I just, for me, it's a huge privilege to have played a character like that, who also was able to make such a difference to people.
So were you aware at the time how revolutionary this was? Maybe not just for Doctor Who, but for TV in general?
No, not at all. I was kind of just, I was, number one, I was having a great time. No, well, not, no, number one, I was trying to do the best job I could, like we all do, you know. Number two, I was having a great time, and my brain was expanding at a rate of knots with the technical stuff that I had to learn, with the speed at which TV, you know, because when you're in a theatre show, you have a rehearsal period, and that's where you're doing your creating and exploring, and you're learning the lines, and you're working on the relationships between people. In TV, you do a few takes and it's gone, and you're on to the next thing, and then you're on to the next one, and then you're on to the next one. So the speed was something new, and I loved that. I really loved having to sum up my whole performance into one take, or, you know, like a very few takes, rather than developing a character over a series of weeks or months sometimes. You know, this kind of condensing of a character into a very short space of time. So yes, it was very new, and I really loved it, and I took to it.
Well, can everybody see that? Anyway, this is the season 3 Blu-ray, which I think you can actually get. I hate to send people to Amazon for a number of reasons, but I think you can get it on Amazon for like $35 right now with a coupon. So if you folks don't have this, this is probably the aciest season of Doctor Who that ever was. It really, this is pretty special. And can we talk about that trailer?
Yes, absolutely. And just to add, I'm sure Jean could get hold of it too for people.
Of course, yeah, that goes without saying. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the trailer, it was so great. What happened was, I just opened an email from somebody, and it was Pete, and he said, I've got this script. We're doing this season's trailer. We've been doing kind of comedy ones, but this one, I'd love to do something a bit different. Ace is my favorite character, and I really want to do something different. Would you mind, you know, it would be really great if you could just read through the script and any feedback, see what you think. So I immediately pressed the attachment, read it straight away, the voiceover, and then burst into tears. And it really did touch something in me. And what it was not only for Ace, you know, the sort of nostalgia thing for Ace, but for me personally, it was suddenly I was transported back 30 or so years. And for me, it touched on the relationship with Sylvester and the Doctor's relationship with Ace. And it just reminded me of that kind of those times, and the and just being together, you know. So I immediately wrote back and said, absolutely yes. So good old Russell Minton got everything together. He must be the host with the most. I mean, he's just brilliant at bringing the right people together. And the filming happened in a real office overlooking the Tower of London and the Tower Bridge, It was absolutely there. No, that's not a screen. That's not a fake. So I arrived and I did the interview first with Matthew, and then the light started going, and I thought, gosh, we better start. And I stood at that window while they set up where the desk was going to be and the shots and everything, and it was all very low key, and Pete was directing it as well. And of course, I didn't have any lines. I'd already recorded the voiceover. And I stood there and I just looked out of that window in my smart suit. And I had a lot of time to sort of think about and reflect. And I'm so glad. And then the light started to fade and Pete said, yeah, it's time to do it now. And we did a few takes and they worked out what would be the best angle, and the sun was going down and the lights on Tower Bridge and the Tower of London came on, and it was very emotional for everybody. And then finally, they reset the camera over this side, and I turned into the camera and said the wicked, and that was it. And nobody could say anything for a few seconds because there were lumps in throats, And I think every single person felt like, oh, wouldn't it be great if this was the beginning of something, And then I'm just thrilled at how it's been put together and the editing, and it couldn't have been better. I absolutely loved it.
So where does that tie in with this?
Very good segue, yeah. Well, it was soon after I'd filmed the trailer, and this old friend, Steve Cole, who used to work at BBC Books ages ago, I did a short trips with him many years ago with Nick Courtney. And Steve another email. It's amazing what pops into my inbox. Steve emailed me, and again, this wonderful opportunity. He said that, did I know about Tom Baker having done this story that he'd always wanted to do, and he's now written it. He wrote it as a novel. It went down really, really well. And Penguin Random House have said, oh yeah, can we have Ace to do the next one? That would be really great. So what do you think? And of course, it was amazing. I wrote back straight away to him and said, yes, please. We had a conversation on the phone, and then we met up together. We don't live too far away, and also with Mike Tucker, who was the visual effects guy on many of our stories, who's another old friend who I met then, who I've remained in touch with. And we wrote a book together as well called Ace, the Inside Story of the End of an Era. And Mike and Steve said, don't worry, because we'll help, we'll collaborate on this. Seeing as it was then July, I think, and they wanted the book delivered in October, which is ridiculous turnaround time. So we all went off. We had some ideas, and I brought the idea from the trailer because nobody knew about the trailer. So I told them all about it, and I said, that's what I want Dorothy to be. That's the person I want Dorothy to be. And so from there, it was very easy to get a kind of an idea of how it was going to go with the 13th Doctor and the companions. And it kind of just all grew out of that, really. So it really was the starting point. And then, of course, there's flashbacks as well. I won't give too much away, but and it was, I knew that probably the most important moment for me in the story, and I think I was thinking of the fans all the way through of the book as well, because I kind of would like to think that I know what the fans want after a 33 relationship with you guys. So the moment where the 13th Doctor meets Ace just had to be right. And that took quite a few rewrites to really get it nailed. It was a true collaboration. Even my husband had an input, It was like, yeah, come on, let's get this right, let's get this so that the fans are really going to get something, old and new fans as well. People who only know the show through the 13th Doctor and don't really know Ace. Let's just really get something going here that everybody's going to get something out of.
So she's Dorothy for the first half of the book, and for the second half of the book, she's Ace. And I wondered if you could kind of talk about how, in your mind, what are the differences between the two halves of this person?
Yeah, I think obviously when we meet Ace in the TV series in Dragonfire, she can't stand the name Dorothy. It's associated with her mother, it's associated with her past, and so she kind of wants to cut all that off, and she's reinvented herself as Ace, and she won't countenance being Dorothy. She hates it because, you know, I think if you kind of have that deal going on with something, then it's usually to do with your past and something that you're not complete with, you're not reconciled with. So of course, then when she's been through her adventures with the Doctor, and there's something that's happened with the Doctor which has led to this split, there's actually, you know, Ace is now a part of Dorothy's character that again she's not really reconciled with, and her whole relationship with the Doctor. So she's kind of rejected that, and then because the Doctor has helped her kind of reconcile with her relationship with her mother and things like that. So I think she's kind of gone back to Dorothy. Also, it's a grown-up name for somebody who's running an enormous charity, a big going concern. So she's come back to Dorothy via Ace. And then, of course, when the Doctor appears and she starts to realize, she kind of completes that, and she realizes, okay, this is me not moving on again, in a way. This is me stuck in the past again. Then she kind of reconciles that, and so then she can become Ace. And she's always kept her jacket and her baseball bat, and she makes her peace with that part of her past as well.
Given that the title of the book is very close to a classic sci-fi novel by Arthur C. Clarke, did that ever give you pause to title the book that, or was it kind of just the opposite, and that it seemed like such a great idea to echo this great piece of literature?
Well, I'll tell you what really happened. It was at first we were going to call it a charitable Earth. And then when the publisher thought, don't know, it's a bit kind of niche, it's a bit obscure. A charitable Earth, it doesn't really say much about the novel in a way. Some people will get the reference, but by no means a large number of people. So then we started thinking of other things which had ACE as their as the initials, and then this just became, I can't remember who came up with it in the end. I think maybe Mike, but it was just the perfect reference, really. And we thought that, yeah, more people are going to get that, and if they don't, it doesn't matter, because as I was just saying, you know, it reflects what happens in the story, but it also reflects something to do with Ace reconciling with her childhood as well.
You know, one of the things that I was amazed by was how well you kind of got the Doctor Who technobabble down. I mean, like, you're a pro. You did a really good job.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, you know, it's funny because after 33 years of hanging around you guys, it's funny in sort of social situations or people who know nothing about Doctor Who, I do find sometimes that something comes out of my mouth and I won't even really be aware that I know it, but, you know, then I'll correct somebody. Well, actually, you know, the autons, blah, 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 you know, and I'm going, where did that come from? But I think it's rubbed off on me over the years. Plus, I have to say that, of course, Mike and Steve, who are much more versed in the lore of Doctor Who than I was, were always there to put me right and to kind of make suggestions as well.
Did they help out? Because there's a lot of Easter eggs, just, I mean, oftentimes just casually dotted throughout the book. And that was those guys for the most part?
Yeah, well, yes, and all of us together, go, oh yeah, that would be good, or why don't we do that? And I mean, I hope that there aren't too many that it kind of takes away, but it was fun to do that, and I think fans tend to like Easter eggs anyway.
So I think you create almost all of these races that we meet over the course of this novel. These are your creations?
Yeah, yes.
There's so much fun. They're so different from one another. It all makes sense. I tell you what, I want to say this, and I no hyperbole. Squidget is the baby Yoda of this book. Okay.
Everybody needs a Squidget. Wouldn't it be great if you could get one for Christmas? I think somebody's got to get to work on inventing one. They're very useful and cute.
And how about some of the other ones, like I'm make sure I'm saying this right. The Stinger.
Stingear, yeah.
Okay.
Well, they were kind of based on this kind of mythology, the centaur type. I've always loved a bit of Greek mythology, and also I kind of, in a way, the sort of astrology as well, the symbol of the centaur in the sky, and then mixed in with kind of Pegasus and all those sorts of references. Yeah, that was where they came from. And this sort of, the kind of, I mean, maybe even a bit of Harry Potter as well, and very, very much a sort of very noble seeming in a way. So it's a bit of a false steer in a way, so this noble race kind of thing, which has maybe gone a bit wrong along the line.
I enjoyed the rats.
Oh, the rats.
Rats were so much fun.
I really would love to see the rats. Yeah, because you see, I was always very, very scared of rats when I was young. I was taken to see the Nutcracker Ballet most years by my parents, and at Christmas time, and I would always have nightmares after going to see this show because the rats would come on and they would seethe around the stage. And I remember, I've got in my mind's eye a picture of, I'm lying in my bed and I can see, no kidding, rats seething around on my bedroom floor. This was my imagination when I was a child. And my mum, luckily, hit upon the idea of coming in and spraying them with pretend rat poison. And that kind of did the trick. So we've later, I mean, the boys had two pet rats. I've got nothing against rats now. But I was kind of, maybe a bit of revenge for those childhood nightmares.
Let's pretend that somebody is going to make a movie out of this book.
Ooh.
And money is no issue. You can cast anybody you want. So I want to throw out some characters and you tell me who's going to play them. Who plays Kim Fortune?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I'm not very good at this
No?
on the hoof. But you're a movie man. Who do you think?
Oh, I don't know. I always thought about Charlie Day for some reason while I was reading it.
Okay.
He's on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I don't know why, but he kind of stuck in my head when I was reading it.
Okay, we'll have Charlie Day. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Who else?
No, okay. Now, I was doing some research, and I'm assuming if we made this movie, we would want Adele Silva to play Chantal. Is that right?
Of course. Absolutely. No question.
Can we talk a little bit about that character in the book?
Yes, she's one of my favorite characters.
you know, I mean, for anybody who can we give away who she is?
Yeah.
Okay. If you've seen Survival, the little girl, Squeak, is grown up in this and plays a big part in this book. And the character echoes what the actress who played the little girl has kind of become over the years. I found this fascinating that you kind of were able to make all of this work somehow. And if you could talk about that a little bit, that'd be
Well,
great.
of course, meeting Adele at conventions, you know, people stick in your mind, don't they? And I just thought it would be lovely, seeing as we were going back to Perivale, to see what had happened to that little girl. And yeah, so that was a delight to think about, actually, and really to grow her up, see what she'd become, and make her not, because at the beginning you think, oh well, she's just a stereotype of you know, but actually throughout the novel she grows up as well, you know. She almost she's got a good story arc, let's say. So yes, Adele Silver for sure can play her.
How about Will Buckland?
Oh golly, yeah. I didn't really have anyone in mind here, but somebody obviously devastatingly handsome, wonderful to be around. Yeah.
Colin Firth.
Colin Firth. I don't know. I'm not sure. Right. Colin Firth. Maybe I'll have to have a think about that one. Somebody certainly who's kind of, yeah, really, really, and a really good person as well. Yeah, maybe you're right, Colin Firth. Okay, I'll think about him. I'll get back to you on that one.
All right. We only have a few minutes left. One of the questions is where can people get the book?
Oh wow. Well, again, I hate to plug Amazon, but you can. There's also an audio version which I've done, which I think it's still on Kindle as well. I think you can download that. But yeah, again, have a look. I don't know whether Jean is doing something here on the, you know, but you could get in touch with him, or yeah, track it down.
You know, another thing, before we're almost at the end here, you really did a marvelous job of capturing the current TARDIS team. I mean, there's never a moment where I thought, that doesn't sound right. They wouldn't say. I mean, you nailed it. Like you could write for the new series.
Oh my goodness! No, I wouldn't like to think I could do that. But I really enjoy the new TARDIS team, and I'd done a lot of audiobooks, playing Jodie, playing all the characters. So that was kind of, I think once you've read a lot and once you've been those characters, even in an audiobook, I think it was much easier to think as in their heads.
I don't know what else we have left. Who's your favorite James Bond?
Oh, again, that's putting me on the spot. That's like saying, who's your favorite Doctor? Oh gosh, I don't really know. I like all of them. They're different. How can you say which is your favorite? You know, it's like the Doctor. Yeah.
Fair. It's fair. Stephen, Nick, are you guys there?
I can't believe how quickly the time's gone. Can you?
It does go so fast. Do you guys have any questions for Sophie?
Oh my goodness. You've done a great job, Ross. I nothing pops to mind.
I have one question for Sophie that I would love to ask her, and that would be, if you have any one piece of advice that you could give a person, and not necessarily related to Doctor Who or acting, but the best single piece of advice that you could give to anybody, what would that be?
No pressure.
What pops into my head is I know it sounds a bit weird, but know thyself. I love personal development work, and the route to happiness, I think, is finding out who you are. This is what Ace does, I think, in the series. Find out who you are, where you've come from, and the meaning, everything, you know, the meaning that you've added to your life that may not even be true.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I think we're at the end.
Oh, well, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to be with you.
Awesome. This was the best thing, my favorite Thanksgiving thing. So.
Oh, Ross, yes, absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving weekend. And it's just like, I wish I could be with everybody in person, because it's frustrating not being able to see everybody who's watching. But for those of you who are watching, I would just like to say, really look after yourselves, look after everybody around you, and stay safe, be well. And yeah, just sending lots and lots of love.
All right. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Ross. One of the things that we have to be especially thankful for right now is spending the last 45 minutes with you guys. Thank you so much. Coming up next, we have the Doctor Who music panel with that super secret special guest that we've been telling you about, that we haven't been telling you about, really. Got to be there to find out who it is, but you don't want to miss it. That starts at noon Central Time. Nick, got anything to add?
Just wanted to let people know that we are posting new vendors from our Artist Alley onto the Facebook page. So check that out and check out the artists and support them. Seeing as we're not able to meet in person, there's a great opportunity to maybe get some holiday gifts there. So back to you, Steve.
All right. Thank you, Nick. And one more time, thank you, Ross. Thank you, Sophie. That was a great 45 minutes. I wish it could have been much, much, much longer. No,
Me too.
All right. It was great to see you guys. And audience, we'll see you in a bit. Onward, Chicago TARDIS.